Hey everybody, it's Funny here once again. Hope you're doing well. Today I'm rambling about the Polyend Synth. It is a desktop multi-timbral synthesizer and it sounds like this. Okay, before we get started here, I need to give a huge shout out, a huge thank you to my buddy Dan who lent me this one to cover for this video. I really appreciate it. I couldn't do it without the help of all y'all. Really want to drive home a couple things before we do. One, I'm really out of my comfort zone when it comes to desktop synthesizer like this. My comfort zone is definitely in Eurorack and especially in drum modules, but to do kind of the opposite in both sides of that category here, we're just going to have some fun with it today and scratch the surface because I feel like there's a lot to explore, a lot to be said, and a lot to be excited about as well. Two, even if I wasn't out of my comfort zone, it's really hard in any reasonable scope to cover every single thing on every single synthesizer, especially one as deep as this. So don't expect that to happen here. And if you are, it's never too late to click off the video. Sorry. But I just want to say, let's have some fun and explore this synth together. And before we do that, I also want to sort of give a bit of weird context to this one. I saw the blush response video on this one. Sounded awesome, looked really cool. I thought the lack of multiple outputs was a little bizarre, but somebody commented saying there's a Synth Plus on the way, but me being really gullible, I believed them. That's actually not true. I directly asked Polyend if there is a Synth Plus coming, and they said no, basically expressed that their resentment towards the commenter and said that there was no Synth Plus on the way. I guess what they were just trying to make light of was the churn of products for the other stuff, like the Tracker Plus, and the really controversial one was that the one that looks like the Deluge. It is the Polyend Play Plus, which is the same form factor as this one, but more groovebox, and I make allusions to the Deluge because it's sort of that groovebox sort of way. If you're familiar with the Deluge, I think it's kind of a larger screen version of the Deluge in my mind. I'm not affiliated with Polyend in any way. They didn't send me this. I am just borrowing it. But I did ask them that, and apparently there is no Synth Plus coming. You know how negatively I feel about revisions and how they leave owners holding the bag, so let's talk about the actual synth. So what is it? I'm going to talk about maybe the different pieces that make it up. You have a mixture of the three synthesizers on here. Now, they are all polyphonic, which is awesome. I love that on the Digitone. I don't know why, especially in digital oscillators. I understand analog, there's limitations, but like digital oscillators are never multi-timbral, and I'm looking at like the Hydrosynth. I'm always like, if the Hydrosynth was multi-timbral, even if you had to give up polyphony to do it, I just always feel like I'm always puzzled why. There's probably a reason, but maybe it's just a UI nightmare. But when it comes to the Polyend Synth, as I always say, I love my screens, and what they've done here is really special in my mind. And I'm not trying to be like a UX snob or whatever. Like, there's plenty of awesome synths that have horrible UIs that are almost charming, right? The synth sounds great and has a beautiful UI. So basically on the Polyend Synth, the scenes is your project. So if we come into here, there's also presets, but I believe, Let's get back out here. If I hit shift and hit preset, these are presets for the voice. You can think of scenes as the project, which stores all your synth voices, your pad layout, your everything. We're going to do an init scene. I don't want to save this one, although I think it's also init. When we get out of here, I'm just going to go back into the scene view. We're going to, I don't know, let's go over to the engine view. So first, when you start out, you're on the Acid engine. And I just want to say, like, if I can, sorry, I want to get some sounds going here. Have some sounds. If I can just say, like, it's funny because on the Polyend Tracker and the Tracker Mini and the Tracker Plus and all the trackers I've had along the way, I believe these are all the same engines. I think there's some new ones, but like the Acid engine was definitely on the Tracker and stuff. And on the Tracker, when it's just like a list of parameters and you pick numbers, it felt really like unintuitive, and I don't know if it's just monkey brain likes to see the wave shape on the screen, but this feels so good. And I don't know why if maybe it's possible for them to backport this into the Tracker or what, but when you're looking on here, I'm just going to play some notes on this keyboard. I believe this is polyphonic aftertouch too, which is crazy. I don't know if you'd want to do polyphony on the Acid mode necessarily, but you get the waveform here, and then this array of encoders kind of lines up to all the different parameters on here. So at the top we'll have saw mix. So you want to mix in your saw or square, so we'll bring in that square. And it's just this stuff that I love. And I think, like, I know I said some things in my things I love about Eurorack video, about Eurorack being great for beginners, but if you don't go down the Eurorack road because you have your sanity or whatever sense of self-preservation, having oscilloscopes, I think, is really helpful. And I know this isn't actually a proper oscilloscope, it's kind of just giving you a visual representation of the waveform on here, but I think it's really valuable. So if I go over to the square mix, I have it all square wave now. You can see square wave is there. I'm going to manually do some PWM by changing the pulse width. And then you can do pulse width envelope, so it'll... So you know I love my screens, but if I have one thing I would like to say on the screen front when it comes to synths like these, and it's not limited to the synth, it's not limited to electron boxes, it's not limited to anything, I would love to see, both for my own learning and for beginners as well, like so the pulse width envelope here is modulating the pulse width. I would love to see the pulse width on the screen just be modulated along with it, right? Or, I mean, just give us a full oscilloscope. Maybe that's a huge resource hog, but like that sort of thing, I just feel like that's the final piece in like the perfect screen workflow. Now, I adore this over like a screenless workflow or just doing it by ear, obviously. Like I said, when the Tracker doesn't have any of this layout, it's nowhere near as nice as it is here, but I just feel like that's the final piece. Same for if I do the pulse with LFO in the corner here. Like, I would love to just see that pulsating, right? These are the things about Eurorack that I really love. You can just pop it into an oscilloscope and Bob's your uncle for seeing your waveform. But so this is the Acid. I don't think there's a second screen. No, there is. You can do some glide. I don't really want to do any glide. But then the other section here is the filter. So again, I just love the UI here. Like, it shows you your peak, and this isn't an actual like spectrograph, right? Like, you don't see, it's just an estimation of what the filter's doing. And same for if I increase the envelope amount. I just wish that, I realize this might come across like I'm critiquing it. It's just that, like, it's so great, and that's just like the one piece that could, push it to be truly perfect. Same for applying this LFO here. It does make it really easy to get to, but, that being said, the experience, despite the things I was just whining about, it's great. Like, I love screens. I've talked about that every episode probably ever. It just makes understanding these things so much easier, especially when it comes to things like envelopes. So if I come in here, you see the envelope here. If we add some attack, like, you can visually see where it is. Now, I wish it had the Zadar ability again, that showed like a playhead as I was cycling through the envelope. Maybe there's reasons. Maybe that's coming later. Maybe nobody cares about something stupid like that, like me. But yeah, see, this is very Electron style envelope in my mind too, where like the sustain section carries half the screen too. Maybe we just do some release and no sustain. Yeah. And then there's LFO as well. So if I apply this, the only thing wish there's a way to, they kind of make it on the synth, like they make this all part of the effects section, which I wish it was more Electron style, where you could just kind of modularly assign it to whatever you wanted, right? That would be nice. Here you just kind of get like FM, which I don't know. There's FM synth engines on here, so I kind of feel like to do it in an Acid engine through this LFO view might be kind of a miss. But it is still there, and maybe they'll beef this up in other sections of the video. The other thing I forgot to show you on the filter page, this one is limited on the Acid to one filter type, I believe. I don't know if that's going to change. I didn't show you the note tracking options. But if we go over to the other engines, like you can just easily switch through here. And again, like, I don't know, they're just like, the way they've done things on here is just like really easy. And maybe it's just, it aligns with how I'm wired, but what we're going to do is change the synth engine. So if we go into engine, I think hit shift. Yes. So hold shift and hit engine, and everything just sort of seems to line up in a way that I expect when it comes to button combos. I hate button combos. Nice thing about a screen though is you know you got them right at least. But everything, like, I want to change the synth engine. If I want to change the synth engine, hold shift, hit engine, get the menu that comes up, and that makes sense. Now I don't want the presets, so we're going to go through the engine. So we did the fat. Now there is lots. So we did the acid. That's a thing to say. But we, for the sake of brevity of this video, I don't know if I want to go through all the engines. Maybe we're just going to try here quick. Fat is this virtual analog one. Again, most of these, I believe, if not all, were on the tracker as well. But you get these macros here for timbre. And you know I love my super saws. And you can LFO that. Again, I wish that there wasn't sort of like per parameter LFO parameters. I wish you could kind of choose where the LFOs went in like a modular way, but again, with modular we're spoiled. And it just sounds marvelous, even in the init patch. Now on here, when it comes to the fat one, the fat is back. You get type control, so it has all these different emulations of different ones, and it varies based on the synth engine. But in the fat one, we get low pass MG24, which I believe is Moog 24 dB, Oberheim 24 dB. And it's really interesting to hear these because I hear so much discussion about Moog versus Oberheim and what the filters sound like, and hearing people describe them using hilarious terms that I don't associate with filters, but it's actually kind of cool to hear them like head-to-head here, right? Like, how would you describe that? The Moog is more aggressive. The Oberheim is a little juicier. And I think this demonstrates pretty clearly that like you can get more aggressive with a 12 dB, right? But it doesn't sound as like liquid, right? The other thing, if you want to hold notes, again, everything on here sort of just lines up in a way that I expect it to, meaning like, how would I hold notes? Well, it's probably going to be hold shift and hit it, right? Yeah. Just everything sort of lines up where I expect it to when it comes to button combos, and I appreciate that a little bit. Let's turn this down a little bit. But again, I can play everything independently on here. Maybe I won't play that acid system that I applied all that FM to. If we go over to this third one, I want to use the other actually, okay, so here's one thing that I don't find intuitive. I expect when it's holding a key, if I tap it again, it'll untap, but you have to press shift and tap it off. It doesn't really matter, but that's where my head's at. Now, on the last sort of macro control on the screen here, we have the sequence. So you can record a sequence in here. I'm not doing that on that screen. If we go to this screen, we can do ARP, though. If we hold these down, they'll ARP. And I really appreciate that. If I hold shift, pump these three in, it's going. You get a couple different controls. I sort of feel like, I don't know, I know ARPs kind of have a reputation of being kind of a crutch, and maybe they are. The meme about want to learn music theory, no thanks, I just press key hold and play the ARP. Well, I'm certainly guilty of that. We can do octave range, gate length. You can basically have it like slew the entire thing. Rate, different divisions, including triplets. If we can bring it up to Legend of Zelda territory or something. You get swing through this groove section. Now, if we go over to the sequence mode, sorry, I'm doing that thing again. Let's unhinge this. if you start playing them, I'll show you how it kind of transposes them, but there's a bit of a weird thing. There's no transport controls on the panel, like there's no record button and a play button, so instead you have to use an encoder, which is kind of finicky, but again, because I love my screens, I'll just say it makes it really easy to tell. So I come over here, I'm in record mode, and it's kind of like a step sequencer in a way, because I go hit one, hit the next one, and you just see these dots all coming through. And because all the pads are aligned and quantized, I don't really have to worry too much about where they land. But now if I press it, it's going to run through. Holy crap, that's fast. Hold on, let's get back over to that. Let's take my rate way down. So now you can do that. I'll hold shift. So the sequence kind of works sort of like, I don't know, I picture like a Moog grandmother where you're just like pressing in, you know, you're not XOX style, but you're just like recording in some steps, and I really appreciate that. There's a humanize function too, which seems kind of crazy deep to me, but also sort of, I don't know, maybe I'm techno brain, but those things just kind of make it sound a little wonky, but something there for you if you want it. Groove in, and then I can just play, and if I can drive anything else home, it's that this thing is just like a cinematic monster, and we haven't even applied effects. Yeah, I adore that. Okay, let's go switch engines. Maybe I can just try and go through a bunch of different ones. We went through the acid, the fat. This is the wavetable one. And if you go to the engine view, you got a whole bunch of different parameters. Again, I love my wavetables. There's so much to this synthesizer, though, that I can't go through every single algorithm, or we'll be here all day. I love my wavetables. Did I mention that? Love my wavetables. This is the... you know what? Let's just load up some presets. This is the Vaporwave one? VAP? Yo, hit my VAP, bro. Let's go over and switch engines. Sorry, I do feel like it is good to do some of them, but there are so many that we can't really do. This FM one, this WTFM, which is what the frig, or maybe Wavetable FM. You get these different macros for 2-op. And honestly, I feel like, again, I love the screen. I've mentioned that a million times here, but the ability to just see the wave output at the top, I think, is like so helpful. Right? Go to the second page. We want to crank up that FM. And again, I wish it was like a proper oscilloscope where I could see the stuff move, but still, it's really helpful. Let's add some feedback. Maybe not that much. Filter, again, kind of like the Digitone has the, you know, subtractive filter after. I really appreciate that. We get all our different modes here. You want 80s, you can have like DX7 sound into Oberheim filter. This isn't my favorite synth engine though. What probably is not the PMD, but let's load that one up. Let's just load a preset, why not? This is the physical modeling one. I don't know if it's just similar or actually built on Elements, but that lineage is there in a great way. Again, sorry, for sake of brevity, we can't go into so much depth. Here is phase mod. Now this one I do want to cover in a little bit because I think this is amazing. This is phase distortion, I believe. So if we go into shape, cross mod, Hermite FM. Crank up those mods. And it's just so easy to get really, like, I don't say this pejoratively, like, I love super digital, super wacky, aggressive sounds. So, yeah, and I believe this is a new addition, maybe the phase one was as well, but granular now, if you want your pads. That sounds more vapory than me. Polyphony, again, poly aftertouch. Try different wavetables. I'm not really much for granular, but I think when they do it in a way that's almost wavetable-y like this, I really do appreciate it. So now if we go over, I'm almost through all of these on the world's briefest rundown of them. DWA is a new one too. What was this one? Oh, this is samples. That's crazy. Damn, that's crazy. Let's get back into the first engine, because the last thing I want to go over is effects. So if we hit the shift, and the effects are great. Okay, so if you go, so if you cycle through the mixer page, you can get to the send. So let's send. Modulation is also the effect. Again, that's their weird routing for it. I'm not going to cover that too much in depth here, but here's the reverb. And it sounds awesome. I just like... I said in that other video, like, I've yet to hear a reverb I didn't like, but... Let's do a little delay too, and then I'll go back over to my effects page. So if we go over to our delay... Yes. It's juicy. But, just where I'm at, I find reverbs to be more exciting. Again, I wish there was like Electron style ability to just LFO all these different things, but maybe that can come in the future. And I also understand they have added, for the last bit here, sorry if my effects overview was a little brief, but I think it's important to get through to try and cover everything at least in a little bit. They did add one thing, and I wonder if this is sort of in place of what I was just talking about, where there's a MIDI track where if I go in here, there's no presets, just init it. On this one, these are like MIDI sends. So there's different values for every MIDI CC. And if you assign MIDI CCs to all these, this is like way above my depth, to be honest, especially if I'm just boring this. I'm not going to go into that depth. But maybe this is a way in which you can get around sort of those limitations by doing internal MIDI and modulating it yourself in that way. So honestly, I think they've kind of landed on something special here. Unfortunately, the I/O is a little lacking. There's only stereo TRS output and MIDI out and in. I'm very like, oh, I want to run a drum machine into this, and you have a full system, but maybe you have to do it the opposite way. I don't know. It just seems like a little bit of a miss to not be able to take the 3 multi-timbral synths and mix them separately. I love to do their own effects and do stuff in the modular front, but you know, for what you get for the money and for the ease of depth of sound and how great the experience is with the screen and how huge the effects are and how easy it is to play. Right? Like this keybed, kind of love it. I wonder if they'll do some sort of step sequencing way down the line. Would be cool to see too, sort of something like a Ovation circuit sort of workflow with the step sequencer. I'd love to see. I don't know if there's some sort of wizardry that they can even do on that front, but yeah, fun synth. Super glad I got to borrow it. It's a monster of different digital synthesis algorithms. So hey, I'm Tafony. Thanks so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that crap. The YouTube's always on my case, but not promoting to you. And I'll see you in the next video.